Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Hi, and welcome to Gray Minds Think Alike, where we dive deep into the conversations that matter most with experts who enlighten, inspire, and empower. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Lammy Askar, Chief Program Officer at AVDA, which is Aid to Victims of Domestic Violence. Lammy brings incredible expertise in working with youth survivors and communities alongside a powerful commitment to prevention, protection, and empowerment. With a background in both educational and nonprofit sectors, Lammy leads transformative programming focused on ending cycles of abuse and helping survivors reclaim their voice and safety. This conversation is for anyone who cares about children, healing from abuse, and breaking generational patterns. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk with you, and I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you and your journey of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Super excited. Not excited to talk about domestic violence and child abuse, but excited to be here and help continue to raise awareness and continue to make sure people are aware of what services are out there and signs to look for, right? Because super important. But
absolutely.
I've been working in the social work nonprofit field about 25 years now. When I was in college, I did an internship at a local sexual assault treatment center down in Dade County. And then once I was finished with that, I worked my way up through Broward. I'm from Palm Beach County. And I landed at Women in Distress of Broward County for a number of years.
Nice.
Loved my work there. And then as a trauma worker, I needed to take a moment. So I switched over to the Girl Scouts for a little bit, which was empowerment, because I'm very big on an empowerment-based model. So getting an opportunity to switch from one side of empowerment to another side of empowerment was really eye-opening for me. Loved doing that work. And then found myself after that back direct service, working in dependency and child welfare and continuing that mission here at AVDA, serving our whole population of survivors from domestic violence.
You definitely come with experience. Can you just tell everyone about AVDA?
Sure. So AVDA, Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, is located in Delray Beach, Florida. We offer a wide variety of services from outreach services, and those are available for folks that are not necessarily seeking shelter, emergency shelter. They might, depending on what their situation is, but they can come to and from our outreach center. They can meet with advocates there. We help with safety planning, in some cases relocation, and talking more about healthy relationships. We also offer prevention services, which is really important, right? So we want to start young with our young people. And it's important for us to be in the schools and to be in the community centers of where our kids go. So we have a really great prevention team. They're out there busy talking about teen dating violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, sharing that message and really getting our youth involved in impact projects so that it's not just like talking the talk, but walking the walk. And so our team is out there in Palm Beach County doing that. In addition, our core service along with those is our emergency shelter.
Okay. Who is that available for?
So that's available for anyone fleeing domestic violence and their families and their pet.
I was about to ask.
We are a pet-friendly shelter. We have about 64 beds. I can tell you they're always full, but we always make accommodations for folks that are fleeing a situation. And here at our emergency shelter, we provide everything, from the food that you need to the clothes that you need to wear, because oftentimes you're fleeing with nothing, to helping with job readiness and finding stable housing beyond their stay with us. So our emergency shelter is it's a needed service in our community. We are one of the few centers, like I said, that we do accept pets. I know that if I was in a situation, I can't leave my dog.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to know that there are places like AVDA and our sister centers that accept animals because that's really important to our families. We've also been really transformative in the world of domestic violence with a text-enabled hotline.
Okay, great.
So that's not really something a lot of places have, but we're really proud to have it. We know that if you're in a situation that's dangerous, picking up the phone and making a call may increase the lethality of that situation. So being able to text a hotline, that's some transformative work, and I'm happy that we're doing it. And then finally, we have a really great transitional housing program. And that's an extended program. It's about 2 years. So we have apartment style living for survivors that are fleeing domestic violence. You don't necessarily have to come from our shelter. You could be a survivor in the community. And if there's space available, we absolutely make that something that folks can reach out to us about.
Nice. And how does that work? Do they just come from you and then move in? Or how does that work?
That's a great question. So almost everyone that connects with us here at AVDA is through our hotline. We are available through all types of different resources. So for folks that are familiar with 211, certainly our law enforcement will refer folks to AVDA, but most of our intakes and the folks that find us are through our hotline.
Okay.
So we typically will also communicate with our partners in Palm Beach County to let them know that we will have space available in our transitional housing.
Got it. And is it paid for through you guys, or do they pay like a discounted rent?
Absolutely not. All of our services are free and voluntary. And that
Awesome.
is from in our work that we do, we're writing grants, we're looking for donors, but everything that we provide here at AVDA is free of service for any one of our survivors, regardless of the program.
How long can someone stay in the shelter or the transitional housing?
Anyone if we use emergency shelter, at minimum, folks stay 6 weeks. Everyone is a case-by-case situation. So that might mean extended shelter. It might mean that they were able to secure a job midway through their stay. You and I both know just because I have a job doesn't mean I can find housing that's affordable. So case-by-case basis, we will extend that shelter. And transitional housing, should we have availability, that's a 2-year program.
Got it. Okay, that's great. All great services. And we can talk more about that. But I'm also just curious. Now, you mentioned local police would mention you guys. Do you work well? Does the company work well with the police? Are they recognizing all domestic abuse?
In my experience over the last few years, that has been something that we've really grown our partnership and our relationship with. We have a very good relationship with the city of Delray Beach, their police chief, as well as the police chief from Highland Beach.
Okay.
So we are constantly communicating with them about some of the service needs we have and the things that we need to see from our law enforcement. We also have a program. We're one of the few organizations, domestic violence centers, that has what's called a coordinated community response team led by a domestic violence coordinator that is here in our program at AVDA. So this human is working with all areas of survivor-focused care, including law enforcement. And the purpose of her role is to improve the criminal justice response to domestic violence.
Okay.
So our relationship with PBSO and our local municipalities is growing much stronger. So we are lucky to have a good relationship with law enforcement.
Yeah, look, all law enforcement is supposed to be helpful, but sometimes, especially when it comes to domestic violence, it can get tricky. I know with me, they wouldn't help me because they saw it as family court issues rather than a legal problem, even though I was being emotionally abused and my child was missing. Sometimes it could be hard to work with police officers.
And the state definition, the Florida statute definition of domestic violence doesn't talk about all the other stuff. What's great about our domestic violence centers here in the state of Florida is we recognize all forms of violence. And we are constantly educating our law enforcement that it might not just be physical. Domestic violence isn't just physical.
You guys do training.
Really important. Yes.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
That's great because it's so important. Now, I guess just in your years, what is the most, I don't want to say cases, but what do you see happening the most? What are the biggest concerns or issues that I'm assuming it's a lot more women. Do you only deal with women?
No, we serve all survivors of domestic violence. So we don't discriminate. We will make appropriate accommodations for male survivors and their families or anyone that identifies as a survivor of domestic violence. You need help, we're going to help you.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Totally.
Any gender.
Your question's really interesting because, again, the experience I have with, we call it short DV, I've seen so many different scenarios. I would have to say that while physical violence is still a huge problem, we are seeing a rise in the technological abuse. The internet world is crazy.
Yes.
So we're seeing the abuse coming through text messages, all of our GPS location services,
social
air tags, everything. Abusers are using those tactics to gain and keep that power and control over the survivors. So us really working with the survivor and talking about these different types of abuses is important. I can tell you that in all of these years, in the number of groups or individual counseling sessions or crisis responses that I do, I hear so frequently that from survivors that it's the emotional and psychological and mental abuse that's the hardest to overcome.
Right.
And that's because...
And they don't leave.
They don't leave. The manipulation comes along with that too, right? The physical, the bruises go away, the scars heal. And you'll hear that from survivors. But it's all the things that they've heard from their abuser that is impacting them and mentally, emotionally, psychologically. That sticks with them for years. That is a huge struggle for survivors that we're really trying to hope to provide them the services they need to overcome that.
As well as fear. I know that so many people are just scared of the unknown, especially financially, or what the abuser might do if they leave and whatnot.
And something we see in South Florida, and I don't always hear it a lot from my colleagues in other states, is certainly immigration status.
Interesting.
It is certainly a tactic that survivors will use to potentially get stuck in the cycle, threatening to take children away, threatening to report them to immigration. That is such a reality nowadays. Helping our survivors understand that's not okay behavior, but there is legal advocacy out there to help them.
Do you guys provide law or legal aid?
We directly no, but we will work with participants that are seeking victims compensation and relocation. So that's a program that's offered by the state. We refer to it as VOCA. You do need a certified center to complete the application with you. And that's to help get some relocation assistance to move away from your abuser. So we, as a certified center, we do that. The checks don't come from us. Checks come from the state. We are the vehicle by which you can complete your application. But we will refer to, in Palm Beach County, we have the Legal Aid Society of the Palm Beaches. So we refer to them a lot. And then we are lucky enough to have some attorneys in the area that might provide some pro bono work. So we do connect them with the legal resources they need.
Now, let's talk about confidentiality. I know a lot of times, I guess, victims won't reach out because they're scared of maybe a trail. Someone will see it. Someone will see their browser history or phone records and just be scared. How does AVDA deal with that? Is there anything that's just completely confidential with no records of a name or anything like that?
So we do fall under the Florida statute for confidentiality and privilege.
Okay.
So we do keep some information about those that are receiving services for our program, simply to have information. But everything that we do track is very brief. Nothing is incriminating. There is really no history that you'll find on anything that we keep. And that's for the protection of the survivor. It's privacy and confidentiality and privilege is of the utmost importance for us. So we never want to do anything that's going to hurt or put anyone in jeopardy.
How do you communicate with these people if it's not in person? Is it through a portal or is it just email or phone?
With our survivors, we can communicate over the phone, but face to face. And that's why we have our outreach services. People come to our office. We take walk-ins. You can make an appointment. And then certainly here in our shelter, they live here. So we are available 24 hours a day with support services.
Do you guys offer mental health services
directly
or support groups?
So we have advocacy support groups and advocacy individual sessions.
Okay.
But for mental health counseling, we do partner with licensed mental health counselors in the area. They do come on site and provide those services to our survivors. And then we can always refer out to other other community partners to provide services, mental health, social work, anything that they may need or just are interested in. So yeah, we have great connections with our community.
That's fantastic because just giving people the tools they need is really all you can do at this point.
Right, because that's hard, right? Take the domestic violence out of it. Just being a human in the world. Asking for help is hard. Compounded with this issue of domestic violence or any other thing that's going on, it's hard to ask for help. And it is, while we might just be able to give someone a resource, taking the next step for them to take the next step to seek out that resource is really, it can be challenging.
Right.
So we're constantly trying to reinforce with our survivors, you can make the decision of what you want to do. There are people out here that care about you and they want to be able to help you. So that's so important just to hear as a human that someone cares about you. You can help them totally change their trajectory.
That's why I do this podcast, right? I would just get so many people reaching out to me asking for advice. And I was just like, I don't have the answers. I clearly did not work out well for me. But what I can do is talk to people that do have answers or that can provide some sort of help.
Exactly.
So
and you're doing great work, Allie. However we can support you, we want to.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. And I know my listeners do because we had women under stress on the podcast, but I definitely wanted to expand our counties and get people within the state of Florida, at least, some more information through different counties, north, south, east, west. So I guess what systematic changes do you believe are essential to protect victims more effectively?
That's a great question. I think that as a community as a whole, we need to be able to recognize these different types of abuses. I think that we don't always think about, like I talked about technology abuse, right? It goes beyond that. There's religious abuse. I talked about immigration status. I talked about all the things, some of the things, but not understanding the dynamic of domestic violence, I think, is where the challenge and the struggle comes in from one organization to the other. And even with our judicial system, and with some of our law enforcement. I can tell you when I very first started this work. So when you come into this realm, you have to go through a core competency training to learn all things domestic violence, that you can gain that privilege to be able to work with survivors. It's not just, I want to work in a domestic violence shelter. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And before I knew much, one of the first questions the group was asked in that training was, what are the causes of domestic violence? And I proudly raised my hand.
Bad people.
I thought I knew. I raised my hand and I said, but it's because people use drugs and they're alcoholics. That's why domestic violence happens. And the facilitator was like, nope. So I think education's really important. Domestic violence doesn't happen because someone is on drugs or someone has a mental health issue. Certainly those can be co-contributing factors, but domestic violence is a pattern behavior of power and control. A person wanting power and control over another person, and they will perpetrate by any means that
which I will say is a personality and probably a mental health disorder.
It can certainly be, it can co-occur for sure, but it's also learned behavior, right? People are not born inherently violent. And that is something that I had through this work that more and more. And that's why things like our prevention team, and I know our sister centers in the other counties, they work really diligently with the schools and the community centers, because if we can help break that cycle at kids at a young age, you're hoping that learned behavior that they took away from wherever, if they have taken it away.
Do you think they learn it as a child? And then that's how they brought out their...
I certainly think that cycle is learned and can start in childhood. I think that culturally, there's some cultural issues to that. I think traditionally in some households, it was just a way of life. I could sit here and I could tell you a million reasons why the sky is blue. Right? You can look at me based on however you were raised in your house and you could be like, okay, Lammy, that's great. The sky's yellow. It doesn't matter what science you're giving me to know that the sky is blue. You were taught that the sky was yellow. And I think that's a really important thing that we sometimes forget, that learned behavior can be oh so powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And that's probably the hardest to break, to once they're brought up a certain way and they see maybe their parents act a certain way. And that's how they believe that life is. What makes me wonder what people did about 100 years ago.
I know, all the time. And you see that trickle down effect across many different areas. So in the work that I've done, I see that trickle down into even when I was in child welfare and dependency. One of the biggest things I saw was that children were being removed because of violence in the home, abuse, and being placed with maybe a relative, an older relative, where potentially that violence originated. And that's where that offending parent learned that behavior.
So they're being placed back into it.
Exactly. And so that is part of my mission work too, as a human, like making sure that we are doing right by everybody. And it's not just in this DV world. It is, again, child welfare, all different kinds of abuses. It's so prevalent. And maybe not obvious to people, but you have to say it out loud. So that's other issues that I see compounding in our current climate.
Yeah. The whole emotional abuse is so hard to explain to people that have never been involved or in it or know what it is, because that could be even financial abuse. And like you said, with like technology, I had trackers all over my car. That's not legal.
No.
So
one of the things that we do have a really good relationship with our community is working with Body Shop car service area. And they will help us check the cars for any trackers. So that's
interesting, because I actually, that one day I knew I was being tracked, and I looked, but obviously I didn't find anything.
We might not know what we're looking for.
Right, exactly. I was looking for anything. So I literally just drove to my local body shop where I get oil changes, and I begged the guy to put my car up on a lift and look. And he said no. And I was like distraught. And I drove around back to where the guys are actually working.
Yeah.
And I got out of my car and I went to a mechanic that was under a car. And I was like, I have nowhere else to ask. But if there's any way you could take 5 minutes, put my car on a lift, and just tell me if you find anything. And I was like in tears. And the guy was like, yeah, of course. And they did. And within 5 minutes, the guy comes out and is this what you're looking for? And it was a black box. And obviously it didn't belong on my car. And I just started crying immediately because I knew it and he affirmed it. But interestingly enough, the guy at the front desk said no. So it's hard.
I'm so sorry, Allie, that happened to you. But I am so thankful that you were able to get that support and that help that you needed in that moment. Maybe not.
Yeah, it was too late, but yeah.
But you got it, right? And I think that's what's so important when we talk about prevention work. Yes, I'm speaking about the youth prevention that we're doing, but our prevention team has been really great about going to local businesses and providing domestic violence education to beyond our youth. And I think that your exact example is why we need the services.
Yeah, it almost makes me want to reach out to them and say, hey, can I refer people to you? They're probably going to be like,
yeah. So we're happy that we have that relationship with our community, because we will call them and be like, hey, we'll come over. But when we're working with our survivors, especially when they're coming here for the first time or we're meeting them before they come here, so typically we meet them at a safe location and transport together. We ask them, please, if you have any location services on your phone, let me see your phone. And they'll guide themselves through their phone, but we will assist them with turning off that location. And some of them don't even know it's on. I bet you unless someone taught me, I don't know if I would know that it was on.
Right.
It's good to have. We do go through those like safety planning processes too.
And when we talk about prevention, aside from going into the schools and teaching, about different types of abuse, and what else is prevention? How do you prevent this?
So prevention of domestic violence, there's so many different ways. When you talk about prevention, you're talking about primary prevention, right? And that is part of getting out there and talking about the message before anything even happens.
Okay.
We want to get in there, right? And then certainly there's secondary prevention where it might have happened, right? And we are trying to come back and say, okay, this thing happened. Let's try to educate you to safety plan for the future. And then that tertiary prevention where it's so much has gone on. So we're going to be in here and we're going to try to really get you the things that you need for you to be safe. And sometimes intervention and prevention happen at the same time, right? Like I said, with us, it's raising the awareness about domestic violence. If we have to go to every local business and do DV 101, we're happy to do that. Our doors are open. I also think that just educating regular humans is important about warning signs. Red flags and warning signs are a really good type of prevention. When I started this work, I think the number of the prevalence of domestic violence is like 1 in 5 or 1 in 7 women would experience DV. And now here I sit in 2025. And yeah, I might have been doing this for a long time, but it's 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence. There were no statistics on men when I started. Now that statistic is 1 in 5 men. So I always tell my friends, because I'm that person always raising awareness, but I tell people, think about when you're standing in line at the supermarket. Every third woman that you count in line would have experienced some kind of domestic violence or is experiencing domestic violence. So that's a huge number.
Yeah.
I think that prevention also goes as far as when you're going to the doctor any kind of doctor and they're asking that question, I can tell you that I don't always see my doctors asking like, hey, are you safe at home?
No.
And the last time I go to the doctor pretty frequently. The last time I went, the nurse asked me and I looked at him and I said, thank you so much for asking me that. And so he said, gentleman, he said, no, I think it's important that you feel like you're in a safe place to talk about it if you want to talk about it. And if you don't want to talk about it, I want to be able to give you the places you can call for help. And that was so impactful for me as a person that does this work.
Right.
Thank you for doing that, because that one human, that one day might be the only person I interact with and the only person that asks me I'm safe. And perhaps I'll use that opportunity to ask for help. So that was really delightful.
Yeah, no, I agree. None of my doctors have ever asked me that even to this day.
And I think that's what's also the relationships that the domestic violence centers have with the community. I can tell you, Broward, in my time at Broward, there is a lot of hospitals that inside the bathroom, you would see a poster and you could peel off the hotline number. We're doing a better job in Palm Beach County of doing that. If you've been to the airport recently, in the airport, you'll see a lot more of the human trafficking signs, which I think is also really important. You're raising awareness in those more subtle ways. So we also recognize that in South Florida, we have tourism is real. And we get especially busy when we have big sporting events or concerts. And unfortunately, that's when a lot of that, that human trafficking realm really starts to kick up. So being aware at that time.
And everyone's watching the Amy Bradley show right now on Netflix, which is crazy. But
it's insane. So keeping our eyes open and recognizing that. But with domestic violence, the other really interesting thing is that we see the calls come in waves. Seasonal. So typically a survivor, our phone will ring a little bit more post holiday season. And that's typically because if there's abuse happening at home during the winter holidays, especially, folks have a lot of family in town, right? And so the likelihood of that abuse being front and center is a lot less than it would be when people leave. So we see that. That's been my whole entire career of watching that flow of
interesting, different times of year. Wow.
So that's always really interesting for us. It also breaks my heart during the holiday season when the shelter's full. So we try to really, this isn't normal, right? Living in a shelter isn't normal, but I'd like to think that we do the best that we can here at AVDA. And I know our sister centers are doing it too, to try to bring some sense of normalcy to these families that are with us. And everybody celebrates different. So we try to be really in tune to that. And we also just try to be really in tune that some of them just don't want to talk to us right now, and that's okay. But just reminding them that we're here. So it's the dynamics of domestic violence and the way that it plays out with service providers. It's really interesting to watch, and doing it for so long. I can tell you we're going to be really slow, likely, because they've got other stressors happening at home that aren't necessarily the domestic violence stressor. It's a stressor of the holidays, it's a stressor of family, it's all these other things. But then that compounds post-holiday, and then we'll see a rise in phone calls.
Right. Now, you say, about the youth and getting to them and educating them. And it's sometimes we can show or share red flags for adults in domestic violence or what to look for in coercive control and whatnot. What would you say to maybe a teenager to recognize what dating red signs could be when they're younger? Because they probably have no idea. This is new for them, dating. They're trying to sort things out mentally, physically. What do you say to them that are possible red flags of something wrong? So
teenagers are such interesting humans. I love working with teens. So there is so much new stuff happening in their lives, right? Like, what is love? For them, it's a different kind of love, because typically they are used to their family love, right? And mom and dad, sibling love, sibling rivalry, whatever it looks like. But this love coming from a different human is so new to them. And what they think is love sometimes masks the signs of dating violence and perhaps the attention that they receive when they're in a relationship, because it's so new that they think that's part of it. So we talk a lot, when we say red flags, we talk a lot about isolation.
Right. Keeping them away from friends and whatnot.
Exactly. And family, right?
Right.
And so that's a big red flag. We see a lot of, again, going back to that technology threats, we have a lot of young people that tell us that maybe their partner took pictures of them that they didn't authorize, and they've threatened to put those pictures online. We also see lots of bullying happening, the way that they're being spoken to, manipulation, trying to deter them from hanging out with people or doing things that they like. As a parent, noticing that your child had such an interest in something, and then all of a sudden that their life's changing because they have this human, and now they've lost interest in those things that they loved so much. So I think that from a parental side, it's important to be looking at that. But then from like a teen to teen side, educating our kids so that they can notice those things in their friends. And I think back when I was a teenager, we didn't have this type of prevention work in the schools. We
didn't even have cell phones.
We didn't have cell phones. I try to explain that to people and they're just, what do you mean? I'm like, we didn't have cell phones. It didn't happen. I just showed up.
So we went to the library to do research.
I was at the mall, people watching. We went to Orange Julius, like all the things that don't exist anymore. But working with our teams so they can identify those things, because that's so big. But I think it's hard because it's a different kind of attention that you're getting that you're not used to.
It's like love bombing almost.
Love bombing is one of the number one red flags. The jealousy is another red flag. So we see that a lot more when you start to look at even like the sexual side of it, right? You have not only are these new relationships, they're new experiences. So hearing if they're being pressured into having sex or anything else that they're not comfortable with. We do see that. And we hear from young people that their partner coerces them in a way to say, if you really love me, you do this. That's probably one of the biggest things is if you really love me, you do this. But then we also see the young people that break off these relationships and they recognize that it's not safe for them. But that doesn't mean that abuse stops. For those of us that have we experience domestic violence and we may have left a situation, we know that sometimes it doesn't stop. And
can teens reach out to AVDA?
They can reach out to our hotline. They do have to have parental consent to receive services with us if they're under the age of 18. However, we have great community partners that we will make referrals to if they are experiencing dating violence here in Palm Beach County. So we will reach out to places like AVDA Nova, Speak Up for Kids are good friends of ours, mental health counselors in the area. It's important for us to be able to identify those places that those kids can go and talk to and their families can help them be participatory in so that they feel
like they probably don't want to share this with their parents sometimes too.
And that's a reality, but some are. And I'm happy that some are doing that. So February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So while we're already present in all of the schools and community centers, we really ramp it up in February. Just like October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we ramp up in February. We do
November is Family Court Awareness Month.
Oh, is it? See, that's something good to know. And I also think with Family Court, that might be National Adoption Month too, if I'm not mistaken. So lots of kid-friendly things. But
there's a month for everything.
There's a month for everything. February is great. We do a really cool youth summit that's teen dating violence focused. And we offer all kinds of different workshops and sessions.
Oh, that's great. Can parents come to that with their child?
Parents can come.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll communicate that and put that out in the community for people to be aware of. We recently this summer just finished what's called our Volunteer Impact Project. That's specifically with teens. So we work with 6 teens from our community and they met every week at our outreach office with our prevention team. And they worked on creating community impact projects for people their age. So they did a podcast, they made some PSAs, they worked to identify the issues that they see happening in school and going back and being able to provide information and resources to their peers. We just wrapped that up last week and I was just watching their PSA videos that they created and they were just incredible. And it's not so often, and not to call anybody out, but not so often do you see the young men standing up and doing this. And I tell you, that room was mostly young men. Our prevention team is men, they're men, and with a focus on engaging men and boys in the crimes against women and girls. So we are being very specific about dating violence and domestic violence to ensure that our message is clear and you're hearing it from people that you identify with. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. And all the conversations and podcasts that I have, we seldomly talk about teen domestic violence and what it's like for them because they're not living on their own
and they
typically.
don't know.
And they don't know.
Every teen, a part of my work was working with the teen dating violence community in Broward County, doing a lot of work at PACE, School for Girls, and doing a lot of work in the teen foster care homes. And so listening to the young ladies mostly tell me about their experiences, they're not much different than the adult experiences, right, but at a different level.
Yeah.
But
especially with sexual abuse. Think of all the cases. A lot of them happens when they're children, when they grow up to possibly be an abuser themselves.
Absolutely. It's like they grow up, they potentially could be an abuser, or they grow up and say, I know that this is absolutely not okay, and I'm not doing it.
And they do the complete opposite. They try to help. So yeah, there's always two schools of thoughts. Now, you talk about empowerment and moving forward, which I love. So what does empowerment mean to you in the context of healing from abuse?
That's a great question. I always pose the same question to folks that I work with too. What does empowerment mean? To me, empowerment means giving someone the opportunity to feel strong and confident enough to make those decisions for themselves, giving them the tools they need to set their path, and knowing at the same time that there's someone there to help them if they need some extra TLC, right? So empowerment for every person looks a little bit different. While there might be some guidelines that people might need to follow, we're really big on setting goals for yourself. I want you to be part of that. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to allow you to tell me what your goals are and what are the steps that you're going to take to help you achieve your goals. Because what your journey is special to you. I'm not on your journey. You're on your journey. But certainly, if you build what your goals and what your journey looks like, I'm here to help you with it. So really allowing the person to feel comfortable to do things for themselves and not rely so much on other people based on whatever their experiences are. And I think that's really a wonderful way to get folks. It's not super clinical because clinical can be scary. It's really going to the beat of your own drum, determining what you're comfortable with, not someone determining that for you. For so long, these folks, these women mostly, have been doing what someone else has told them to do.
Right.
We need to help get them to a place where they're doing the things that they want to do and they know are best for them.
Yeah, they probably just don't even know what that is anymore because it's been so long and they're so scared. They don't even know. But yeah, empowerment is difficult. It's difficult to give because I think a lot of it has to do with insecurities and maybe financial aspects. And I can say, or someone can say, yes, I want to do that, but I can't.
Where do I start?
How do I really pick up my whole life? And
you're absolutely right. One of the things I see with some folks that are with us that receive services, let's use credit as an example. So we have some folks that they don't have bank accounts. They wouldn't even know how to open a bank account, where to start, how to check their credit. We have women that are seeking new places to live, but they can't get approved because they have no credit. Or they don't have any money for the deposit. So one of the other things that we do at AVDA here is our economic empowerment advocate will work one-on-one with that survivor to teach them that the basic 101 of checking your credit, opening a bank account, financial literacy, and ensuring that they have a good understanding of how to get started in this new world that's theirs, right? Because you're absolutely right. Where do I start? But being able to give them those tools to kick it off and educating them has been most helpful. And it's so great when I sit back over here and I have survivors who will come in and say, Miss Lammy, oh my gosh, let me tell you about the job I got, or let me tell you about my new apartment. And I'm going to go shopping for the things that I need. It warms me so much to hear those things. Knowing you've lived in a shelter now for the last few months and in communal living, and communal living is not easy. And now you're going to take that step into something new with your family. It's an incredible feeling watching that.
Yeah, I could only imagine.
Coupled also with fear. Right? It's new to them. So we need to be here and be prepared to help them manage through those feelings, making sure that safety planning is happening, making sure that they know what to do when XYZ happens, giving them that guidance so that they can, again, go on that journey and feel like they have that support around.
I think a lot about empowerment also is giving them the education, right? Because then they're learning all the things that you just said. They're learning that it's out there because they probably have no idea that you guys even offer that.
Filling their toolbox with the tools that they need is really, it's important to us.
For sure. Now, you've been in this type of work for years and you've worked with children, you've worked with adults. I guess what can you maybe think of one or two particular moments or incidents where you're like, wow, this is why I do this. This is why I wake up each day and do this work that is so hard to do and see these sad stories. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Like I said, there have been times in my life where working with the kids was probably the hardest. I love it. I will always do it. But working with kids is certainly so hard. In my time at one of the TV centers I was at, I remember just getting in the car at the end of the day and just boohoo crying uncontrollably.
Yeah.
And I think about those kids all the time. And so if I fast forward 15, 20 years to this one particular family I'm thinking of, I was out to dinner one night with my family and this young lady walked up to me and I looked at her and I said, man, like, I know your face. And she just had the look about her eyes. I will never forget her eyes. She had beautiful eyes. And she looked at me and she said, Miss Lammy. And I said her name and we just immediately started crying together. And she said, I'm here. This is my family. This is my daughter. This is my husband and I'm doing this and let me call my sisters and tell her like, I can't believe it. And it was that moment. And yes, we were out in public and I was with my family. She was with her family. And I didn't share with my family like how, because again, I'm respecting her privilege and her confidentiality.
But that she's happy.
And she'll tell me, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't come and chatted with you and pushed me to do those things.
How many years later was that?
This was at least 15 or 20 years later.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And seeing her daughter, and she was a kid when I saw her. And that one, I just got goosebumps, like saying it out loud. That was incredible. Seeing kids that were with me in our domestic violence center that I was at before, they're graduating college and they have jobs and they're doing all the great things. And I'm just so proud of them. But that young lady will always stick out in my head. When it's so badly, when I'd be like, let's exchange numbers. Let's keep, and we don't do that. That's not part of the work. But it almost helped me have a little bit of closure with that particular human because I'd just always been thinking about her. No matter how many other cases, you hear about these egregious things that have happened and hers just always like it sat right here. Even if I wasn't thinking about it, like there was just always something right here sitting. And then when I saw her that night, it was almost like the whole thing lifted. So I knew like, okay, it's like the starfish story, right? The beach full of starfish, but I was able to help one. Right. I helped one get back into the water. And that was my starfish.
Seldomly see the final results years later and see what happens to someone and how they live their life. Nobody gets that back.
But she was my edge.
That's nice.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that makes it worthwhile so you can do the hard work that you do.
But I gotta tell you, Allie, it's the staff, right? Like someone recently, I was doing an interview with the news and they were like, what also keeps you going every day? And it's like, the staff.
Right.
I come in here and I look at the folks that I work with, men and women, and they're the ones that are the frontline workers. Like they're in it. I'm in it, but they're really in it. And I do it because I know that they're doing it. And I know being one of those people when I first started my career, the things that you carry home with you. And it's hard because we can't go home and talk about it. I do this work because they're here and it's hard.
Yeah.
But they're an inspiration to me. I don't know what I would do without the people that I work with because they're just incredible humans.
That's great.
You're making sustainable change every day.
Absolutely. And we thank you. And as victims and survivors, like I said, it takes a tough skin. So thank you to everyone that, participates in all kinds of advocacy and prevention and any kind of help for people involved in domestic abuse or pretty much anything. So thank you so much for that. And I guess we'll wrap it up. If you can what gives you hope right now in this work? Is there one thing where you're like, okay, I see maybe a light at the end of the tunnel, or I see things maybe dying down?
I wish I could say that things are dying down. I'm very naive to think that I will be jobless someday.
Right.
Domestic violence will go away. I think what I can say with a full and joyful heart is that from 25 years ago till now, there is more of an emphasis on domestic violence. It is becoming more of a frontline conversation.
Breaking the stigma.
Exactly. We are doing a better job could do better. But we are doing a better job of implementing the things that we need to help people, really working on breaking the cycle. I do see that change. I have seen it in 25 years.
And that's why we talk about it, right? Because the more you talk about it, the more you make it normalized and say, it's okay. We're going to talk about this because this
isn't healthy. What you're experiencing isn't healthy.
Right.
I think that the generation of people that are coming up, I see it with the young folks, they are not afraid to talk. And while maybe growing up, I was a little bit afraid to talk, and maybe even sometimes now, but our young people, they're not scared.
Yeah.
They are not scared to say the things. They say them.
That's great.
And I think with everything that's happening in the world, watching them show up and watching them use their words and use the tools that they have is probably one of the things that does give me lots of hope.
That's great. A new generation, right? I mean, because I've always been a talker. I've always shared. I've always said, even in my specific situation with Greyson's father, I was verbal. I told friends, I told lawyers, I told everyone that would listen. And the fact that it wasn't talked about, or it was, but nobody wanted to really believe that this kind of thing happens.
The actionable item onto that. So I've told you about this. Now, how are you going to help me?
And now that I've talked to so many people since Greyson's death, it did exist. It does exist. People just weren't talking about it. So the more you talk, the better it is. And that's why I will always share my story, because people need to know that these crazy things that you think don't happen, they happen.
And keep doing it, Allie. You're doing great. And if anyone didn't tell you today that you're doing fantastic, you're doing fantastic.
Thank you. Now, lastly, where can people get your contact info or learn more about AVDA or get involved or help? So
our hotline, our 24-hour hotline, like I said, is both call and text enabled.
Okay.
You can call or text us at 561-265-2900. Someone will always answer. Again, text or call. We are located, our admin office is located in Delray Beach. You can certainly go online and learn more about AVDA and our services. You can also find us by calling 211. They will connect you to us. So we are here and we are ready to help in any capacity.
Well, that's great. Do you guys do annual fundraisers, I'm assuming?
We do. We have a walk coming up in November. We are to still finalize that date, but it will be at John Prince Park in Lake Worth. So you will find us in November. And then we are actually celebrating our 40 years next year, 2026, in February. So we are finalizing that too. It is our Heart of a Woman luncheon we will present all of the people or honor the people that have helped us be who we are and get to where we're at in the last 40 years. You could also go online to avdaonline.com and you'll be able to read more about our Purple Pajama Party, which is a fundraiser that you can read all about. It's all about hosting a pajama party with your family and friends to help us raise some funds for the work that we're doing here at AVDA. But you can find all that at avdaonline.com or calling our hotline again at 561-265-2900.
All right. I'll put all of that in our show notes for people so they have all the contact info. And maybe I'll do the walk in November for Family Court Awareness Month and I'll represent. We'll see.
We'll be there. I'll send you all that so you can continue to update. But yeah, you should come.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for sharing and talking with us and our listeners. And I know it's going to be super helpful for those in your area. So I appreciate that. Hopefully we can connect again.
Yeah, I would love it. Thank you so much, Allie, for having us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Bye.
Bye.
If there's someone that you want to hear from on this podcast, please feel free to send me an email. Or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out at Allie@GreysonsChoice.org. If you would like to continue to hear our podcast, please consider donating at GreysonsChoice.org. Any amount helps to fund our mission to help protect our children.